the problem is the regime. It's basically a Russian proxy, funded and influenced heavily from the Kremlin. Tbilisi's population is roughly 1.5 million people. Almost 300,000 people marched through the streets on May 11th. That's like 1/5 of the whole city's population. Only Putin and Lavrov and Peskov. So the Kremlin is supporting the law, and this tells everything.
There are protests ongoing in Georgia in response to a proposed law on transparency of foreign influence. It would require NGOs and media outlets receiving more than 20% of their funding from abroad to register as agents of foreign influence. The law has been widely criticized as an attempt to suppress civil society and independent media. We will talk to Dachi Imedadze, the head of strategy at the Shame Movement, which has been actively involved in this protest. Thank you, Dachi, for accepting our invitation.
Well, thank you for your time again.
How it's going?
Well, it will be weird to say everything is going well. They basically accepted the law. We are now waiting for next week, I think as early as Monday probably, for them to override the veto of the president. But I'm quite optimistic about the future, even though the law will officially be put into motion. I think that the whole process sparked a wave of protests and a wave of people just organizing themselves on the street, that this might be very useful for democratic change during the October elections. In that sense, everything's going well because I saw that Georgian people are ready to protect their future.
So talking about the situation now, so what's the situation in Tbilisi streets right now, and how many people are there protesting?
So Tbilisi streets are crowded every day, at least during the evening time, because when people finish their jobs, they always go to Rustaveli Avenue, which is the central avenue of the city, and there are lots of thousands of people protesting every day. So, for example, we had the biggest demonstration. It was May 11th, when, according to some sources, it was at least more than 200,000 people on the street, and I think that's the biggest demonstration Georgia has ever had. But apart from that, at least a few thousands of people are on the streets every day, marching through the city, organizing various performances, and these are all different groups. So the interesting thing about the protest is that it doesn't have any central group that leads the protest and organizes it, rather than it's like a decentralized groups of people who organize themselves, and if some of them want to do something on the streets, they just go out and do it. They're not waiting for anyone to officially announce the rally or demonstration. They're just doing it. This is the situation right now. Everyone is out, everyone is on the street, everyone is doing something that they can according to their skills, their abilities, their knowledge. So it's a very empowering and inspiring atmosphere in the country.
So you have mentioned that it's been a long time that people are protesting. How do you do it? Like, how do you ensure that everything is active and people are there protesting? How do you organize it?
Shame Movement, my organization, doesn't organize any of the rallies on the street. As I've said, there are people on the streets on their own. They are self-organized. What we do instead is that we do digital campaigns, and also some of the outdoor campaigns as well. But we mostly see ourselves in our role right now to support the protest, to ensure that people have the information, have the motivation, and have all the necessary skills and tools to be equipped within the protest. I think our following on our social media platforms has increased immensely during the last month or so. We've added a couple of thousands of new followers and supporters. So I think they just need to be guided through difficult things that they might not have experienced of how to deal with. And since Shame Movement has been protesting since 2019, we know what's required to have a successful protest.
Despite the regime's desperate methods, the fight persists, and we need your support. We continue to fight against Russian imperialism, and we will bring Georgia home to Europe.
Since the protest started, I think it was April 3rd, and we put out tens of posts. We also create the WhatsApp channel that is dedicated fully to the protest. So it's like I think one of the best tools and platforms to receive information about the protests, like what's going on the ground, what's happening and where and when, and all of this information is just in one space. Apart from that, the campaigns that we've been doing is that we encourage people to self-organize, to be equipped with the necessary information of how do you protest, what are your rights, what are your responsibilities within the protest, like legally. And of course, we also give them our viewpoints about how the protest should go through the next weeks. What are the things that we should be focusing about and such. So yeah, that's mostly the description of what we have been doing.
The Prime Minister said that the polls show that 60% of the citizens agree to this law. So what can you say about this?
That's a made up information, as simply as that. The Prime Minister is most probably referring to the internal survey or opinion poll that the Georgian Dream, the ruling party, organized, but this was before the protests had started. So I think he's referring to the March opinion poll, which they are also being manipulative. They say that 60% of the Georgian public supports transparency. And that's a very vague statement, because if you ask a random person, like, do you support transparency? No one will say no, because that's dumb. So we don't know what kind of data do they have. We don't know how the questions were formulated. We don't know what methods did they use during these surveys. But what we know is that they're trying to get legitimacy from an unknown data or survey or opinion poll to then say that, well, our actions are justified. It's just and right and correct to go along this law. But it has showed that this is nowhere near the truth, because I think Tbilisi's population is roughly 1.5 million people, and almost 300,000 people marched through the streets on May 11th. So that's like 1/5 of the whole city's population. So it shows where the public stands on. So unfortunately, we don't have any official data from the organizations such as NDI or IRI or Edison Research or whatever, who does the opinion polls in Georgia, to see what the real numbers are. But again, the number of people on the streets, the international support for our cause, and also the rally that the Georgian Dream organized on April 29th, which was, again, very, to say the least, less people attended that rally rather than the rallies that are organized by civil society of Georgia. So I think all of that, the combination of all of those things, just show that their numbers are incorrect.
What about other cities? Like, are there protests in other cities rather than?
Yes. So Georgia has, apart from Tbilisi, we have two major cities, Batumi and Kutaisi, and also like a bit smaller towns. Everywhere, basically, there are demonstrations going on. I think in Batumi we had about 100,000 people marching through the streets. This was a few days ago, which is a huge number for Batumi, because the population of the city is about like, let me just quickly Google it. I don't remember now, but that's a huge number for Batumi, because not a lot of people live there. Yeah, 150,000 people according to 2016 census, but a lot of Russians live there now. Also, I think a bit more moved there. So it must be around 200,000 people. So if half of them were headed to the streets, that's like crazy number.
There have been reports of police violence during the protests, and media outlets have been targeted. How do you address and how do you respond to these actions?
Yeah, we always try to showcase the police brutality because these kind of crimes have to be punished. Georgian police is required by the law, this right police, to have a hat or a uniform that has some type of number on it that would help to recognize who exactly these people are. And they're just breaking the law. They are not wearing these numbers to be recognized, to basically not be recognized when they commit a crime, which is beating the protesters, who are mostly peaceful. One of the major incidents that happened and cases there was David Katsarawa, who is an anti-occupation activist, quite famous in Georgia. He was very brutally beaten. Just yesterday, he was released from hospital, and he showed the public and the journalists the choke marks that he had on his neck. So basically, they tried to kill him, not only just beat him, but also to choke him, which is crazy. But unfortunately, we don't know who these people are who did this. And we cannot find them accountable unless, for example, there's a whistleblower who will tell what's going on and who are the people responsible. So this is challenging, but we try our best.
And why do you think the government decided to take this step? Why did they introduce this law at this particular time?
Yeah, so basically, the situation, the political situation in Georgia is quite favorable for the ruling party, especially when the oppositional political spectrum is quite weak at this point. It's fragmented, it's divided into tiny little parties who don't have the ability to resist the government effectively on their own. That's one. And the Georgian Dream ruling party has every state institution basically working for them. The judges are being corrupt and basically obey the instructions coming from the political leadership. The prosecutor's office is also obedient to the Georgian Dream, the police, the Ministry of Internal Affairs fully, etc., etc. So, and also the Central Elections Committee is also heavily influenced by the Georgian Dream. So the only major group or a sector who could resist the government's influences was the civil sector, so the NGOs and other civil society organizations. We could investigate the government corruption. We could mobilize people on the streets, and not only on the streets, but also for the elections. So all of these things were perceived as problems for the government because they're authoritarian. They don't want their regime to be criticized. They don't want their regime to be, well, they don't want their faults to be seen by the public. So basically, this law is a tool to clear the field from these critical voices and silence and shut them down. And this is something that they have said quite openly. They, of course, will not say that, well, this is my aim to shut down the NGOs, but sometimes we could read under the lines, and also one of their main propagandists, Shalva Ramishvili, accidentally slipped this message to live on air. He said that, well, we are not coming to investigate your actions yet. And this is only about like financial transparency, whatever, the things that they say often. So yeah, that's the reason that they introduced this law, to clear the field from the critical NGOs that as they perceive. I was surprised. Well, I knew that they were going to reintroduce the law at some point because it's their nature, but I was surprised that they did it before the elections, because it kind of was not too optimal for them, because it caused a lot of backlash. The political situation in the country, for example, like 2 months ago, was very, very stable for them and not challenging for them. But now they did something that, united the whole society against them, and not only internally within the country, but also international partners such as EU, European Council, European Parliament, the United States Department of Service. Everyone is against this law. Only Putin and Lavrov and Peskov. So the Kremlin is supporting the law, and this tells everything.
The president, Saruman Zurabishvili, vetoed this law. How do you see it's developing? You also talked about the elections. How do you see it coming?
We have to see if they're too strict with the law while executing it, or if they try to at least make a perception that, elections are at least more or less democratic. We are not too strict on the NGOs. We'll have to see. But no matter what happens on that part, I do see that now for ourselves, like civil society, the political parties, the opposition, the citizens, we have to just accept that this is not, well, the law is not the problem anymore. It's a symptom. So the problem is the regime. It's basically a Russian proxy, funded and influenced heavily from the Kremlin. So they are the problem, and they have to be changed in the October elections. So I think that we should be now focusing on bringing as many people to the polls as possible. Because, for example, like my generation, the youngsters, like 18 to 35 age group, 1/3 of them doesn't participate in the elections. They just don't go to the polls. They don't vote. So it's a challenge to somehow motivate and encourage them to participate in the elections as well. Now in the streets, the core group of the protest is the youth, which is a great thing, because at last this generation has like the Gen Z has stepped out on the political arena. They want to somehow be represented. So now what they have to do is to go and vote against the government, of course. So I think that's the challenge. If they will shut the organizations down, and they, for example, will not let us to do the get out the vote campaigns, it's of course will make our job harder to persuade people to go and vote. But no matter what, we will do that like individually. We did create a new organization and do it using that tools and instruments. So I don't know, this is just the ideas that I am coming up with right now. But the main thing is that we will not stop our work because they will try to. We will just try to do everything we can this year and next year as well.
So just briefly, what's your next step?
Yeah. So what we are currently doing at the moment, of course, except creating content and try to be updated with the ongoing situation, is that we are creating a strategy for public campaign for the next few months of how do we unfold our next activities during the summer, and of course then September and October, which are the crucial months. So we are right now in the middle of creating this strategic action plan of how do we act. Then we are also preparing we are doing the scenario planning of what do we do in case they try to shut us down? What do we do in case they don't? Like what are the options that are ahead of us? So it's like a planning mode for us right now. Of course, that doesn't mean that we are going to stop protesting. We are participating in every protest that's going on. But of course, we are also looking ahead for the next few months, because Ivanishvili directly said that, like the oligarch who is the shadow ruler of the country, during his speech, that this was my strategic move to somehow tire out the civil society and take away their attention and focus from the elections to this process. So of course, this should not be something that we do, but rather than also participate in the protest and also plan ahead for the elections. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good luck and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.